Folks, Black Star Network is here.
Hold no punches.
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America, Roland.
Stay black. I love y'all.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig? Today is Monday, August 28th, 2023. Coming up on Roland Martin Unfiltered, streaming live on the Black Star Network from Atlanta. Folks, racism in Florida. A white racist shoots and killed 3 black folks at a Dollar General store. Governor Ron DeSantis comes to the community. Black folks boo him, and folks are saying this is the kind of climate that the Republican Party has created among these racists in America. Also, one of the Republican candidates actually had the audacity to blame Democrats as well as those of us who fight on behalf of black people for this happening. We'll show you what that idiot had to say. We'll be joined by a state representative from Florida as well. So I'm here in Atlanta, where Fulton County DA Fani Willis is going to have a showdown with a former Trump Chief of Staff, Mark Meadows. He does not want his case tried in state court. He wants to move to federal court. We'll tell you all about that. Also, COVID is resurging in America. Hospitalizations are up. There's also a link between COVID and heart issues. We'll talk about that on today's show as well. Plus, today is actually the 60th anniversary of the March in Washington for Jobs and Freedom. On Saturday, there was a commemoration of that. We'll share for you some of the folks who spoke there as well. It is time to bring the funk on Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network. Let's go.
Whatever the best, he's on it. Whatever it is, he's got the scoop, the fact, the find. And when it breaks, he's right on time and it's rolling. Best believe he's knowing. Putting it down from sports to news to politics. With entertainment just for kicks, he's rolling. It's on go, roll, roll, y'all. It's Roland Martin, yeah. Rolling with Roland now. He's funk, he's fresh, he's real, the best, you know he's Roland Martin now.
Folks, another racist attack against black people leaves 3 folks dead in Jacksonville, Florida. On Saturday, a white racist first went to Edward Waters University. He tried to get on that campus, was pushed back by security, and then they also notified authorities the campus was placed on a lockdown. He then went to a Dollar General armed with an AR-15, made it clear he was there to kill, quote, niggers. He shot and killed 3 folks in the parking lot as well as in the store before turning the gun on himself. Yes, armed with an AR-15 assault rifle. Angela Michelle Carr was dropping off an Uber passenger at Dollar General when she was struck by gunfire, killed inside of her car. Arnold Joseph Laguerre Jr., 19 years old, store employee, plus 29-year-old Gerald Deshaun Gallion was shopping inside Dollar General with his girlfriend when, again, this racist shot and killed him in this particular shooting. Folks, the gunman, again, bought a handgun in April as well as an AR-15 assault rifle in June. He lived with his parents in a neighboring county, had no criminal arrest history, although he had been temporarily and voluntarily held under the Baker Act in 2017. Police say racist manifestos written by him have led them to believe that he committed the shooting because it was the 5th anniversary of another mass shooting in Jacksonville. And that was what took place that day, August 26, 2018, when a white 24-year-old gunman killed 2 and injured 11 at a Madden NFL video game tournament before killing himself. Joining us right now is Florida State Representative Angie Nixon. Glad to have you with us. First and foremost, it is shocking and stunning what's happening. The thing that jumps out at me initially, different media outlets called it racially charged, racially tinged. No, this white racist made it clear he was out to kill black people.
Yes, most definitely. Let's be clear. It was racist violence. It was white terror that occurred this past weekend. And we cannot allow them to sterilize or sanitize what really happened. And, you know, folks are starting to say, well, he had mental issues. No. He was a racist who hated black people, who had an agenda that he was riled up clearly by elected officials across this state who have done nothing but embolden folks like him with their rhetoric, with their gaslighting, with their hateful anti-woke policies, which we know are only dog whistles to rile up their base, much like what happened here on Saturday. I'm upset. The community's upset. I'm actually co-hosting a rally today. I'm in a car and they're behind me, and there are hundreds of people out here that are angry, righteously so. And so we are upset, and we will not stand idly by and allow our governor to try to spin this, because at the end of the day, he is running for president. And if he is doing things like this in the state of Florida, you can only imagine what will happen across our country.
This racist gunman's name is Ryan Christopher Palmeter, 24 years old. Had a number of racist manifestos the police have also announced. And what also jumps out at me here, we're talking about a state where they've expanded gun rights. They made it easy for people to have guns. You also have this constant racist attack on black people, attack on critical race theory, attack on DEI, attack on, quote, wokeness. And so what you have is the likes of Governor Ron DeSantis in Florida, Governor Greg Abbott in Texas, and literally the entire Republican Party on a constant assault against black people and other minorities, and the people who they are appealing to are the folks like this shooter.
Exactly, and it's wild how they are spinning this, right? And what's interesting here in the state of Florida too, though, Roland, that I really want to point out is the fact that although this horrific tragedy happened this past weekend, we have the potential for it not to be allowed to be taught in schools because it makes people uncomfortable. And that's what they want to do. They want to erase the pain and the hurt and the anguish that they've caused many within our community. And it's just not right. And I'm for one, I am tired of it. I know, I often get punished. We have a vindictive governor who only cares about pandering to a base of voters. I mean, if you just look at his track record here across the state of Florida, the first thing that he did and pushed when I came into office was HB 1, the anti-protest bill, Hate Bill 1. And what that was it was a response to the majority peaceful protest that took place in 2020 after the brutal execution of George Floyd. And though they passed a bill to make it harder for black people to congregate and to push back and to push policies. They were upset because they knew when we come together, we are powerful and we're able to get things changed. They didn't want black people to come together. They don't want us to organize. So now they consider us felons. They could potentially consider us felons if we gather, and I think it's about 5 or more. It's a very subjective bill. And so what does that do? That causes people to be fearful to come together and to speak out, and it causes folks to be silent about their pain. But like a famous Floridian stated, if you are silent about your pain, they will kill you and say you enjoyed it. And that is exactly what many legislators in the state of Florida that are members of the Republican Party are doing here.
Well, and again, what you have here, the governor comes out, announces $1 million for security at Edward Waters. I saw a story, Shannon Watts, of course, with Moms Who Demand Action, posted this where Florida is spending some $61 million to bulletproof off some, government offices there. It's kind of stupid that you would spend $61 million to bulletproof buildings, but then you want more folks to have guns, even when you have sheriffs and others who oppose the expansion of guns. And so this is what you're seeing. And I dare say, when you look at these racists who write these manifestos, the reality is they are listening to conservative talk radio. They're watching Fox News. They are constantly seeing the demonization of black people. And so what you have here are young white men, guys like him, guys like Dylan Roof and others who have this somehow misguided notion that, oh my goodness, their world is falling apart. They will not be able to partake in the American dream, and they blame it on black people. And this is the end result. 3 black people shot and killed in Jacksonville, Florida.
Yes, that is, you are exactly right. And it is, it's maddening. It is maddening that the folks who are in leadership care more, again, about pandering for votes. Look, they are targeting marginalized communities, but more specifically, they are targeting black people. And the thing about it is we have so many more issues, bigger issues to deal with. We have a hurricane coming, and there's a property insurance crisis here in the state of Florida. People can't even afford their property insurance. Some people are going without. And we have a storm headed in our direction. We have over 9,000 educator shortage rolling. 9,000 educators short in the state of Florida. What does that do for our children? How does that allow them to be able to compete on a global society? When the governor can be addressing issues like that, when leadership can be addressing issues like that, they instead go to low-hanging fruit, which is to rile up a base of folks by targeting marginalized communities. And it's not only that, like I also want you all, I don't know if you remember, Roland, I sat on the floor last year because the governor decided to eliminate unconstitutionally 2 black access districts, 2 black congressional districts. We're still in court for that now. And I mean, this guy, he doesn't care about black people. I have said it before. I will not mince my words. He is a racist who is very politically ambitious, and that is a deadly combination, as evident by what happened on Saturday.
Look, you had that rally. Certainly want you to get back to that. We appreciate you joining us on the show. Thank you so very much. And certainly our prayers go out to the folks there in Jacksonville, Florida.
Thank you. Bye.
All right, thanks so very much. All right, folks, going to a break. We come back. We're going to show you the video when Ron DeSantis showed up in Jacksonville. They were not feeling him, and here's those boos come raining down. We'll talk about it with our panel, as well as, again, white terror, white domestic terrorism rears its ugly head again. And folks want to call it something else than what it actually is: white domestic terrorism. You're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network.
You go into a barbershop in a 700 credit score neighborhood, black or white, they're talking about their ideas and they're talking about how they're going to move on those things. You go to a barbershop at a 500 credit score, equal brilliance, but bad culture, they're talking about other people. You go to a winner's barbershop, here's what I'm doing. You go to the barbershop where people feel defeated, they talk about other people, either celebrities or people they admire, but also often, I don't like Joe. I don't like Roland Martin. Well, let me tell you something. I don't understand people. How could you not like anything here you see, you should just be like, this is amazing. It's cool. You may not even like how he does it or how I do it, but it's like, you know what? They're succeeding. They're killing it. All you should be is, that's fantastic. But if I don't like me, I'm not going to like you. If I don't feel good about me, it's hard for me to feel good about you. If I don't respect me, don't expect me to respect you. If I don't love me, I don't have a clue how to love you. And here's the big one. If I don't have a purpose in my life, I'm going to make your life a living hell.
On the next Get Wealthy with me, Deborah Owens, America's Wealth Coach, I'm sure you've heard that saying that the only thing guaranteed is death and taxes. The truth is that the wealthy get wealthier by understanding tax strategy. And that's exactly the conversation that we're going to have on the next Get Wealthy, where you're going to learn wealth hacks that help you turn your wages into wealth.
Taxes is one of the largest expenses you ever have. You really got to know how to manage that thing and get that under control so that you can build wealth.
That's right here on Get Wealthy, only on Black Star Network.
Up next on The Frequency with me, Dee Barnes, we're going to talk to Leslie Segar, a.k.a. Big Les, and talk about her incredible career as a dancer, choreographer, and VJ of Rap City.
Magic Johnson was there, so half the NBA was there. Iman the supermodel, so all the supermodels were there every day. Actors, right. Like it was a who's who of who's who.
Right here on The Frequency in the Black Star Network.
Hey, what's up? It's Sammy Roman.
Hey, it's John Murray, the executive producer of the new Sherry Shepherd Talk Show.
It's me, Sherry Shepherd, and you know what you're watching. Roland Martin, Unfiltered.
Well, folks in Jacksonville gathered after the shooting to mourn, to cry out. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis actually showed up, and he was not met with an adoring crowd. This is what took place at that event.
Florida Governor Ron DeSantis is here. We're going to ask the governor if he would come now and bring remarks.
Well, thank you for doing this. I want to just say to the councilwoman, I got you. Don't worry about it. We've already been looking to identify funds to be able to help, one, make sure there's adequate security for Edward Waters College. We are not going to allow these institutions to be targeted by people.
Okay, listen, y'all. Let me tell you, we finna put parties aside, cause it ain't about parties today. A bullet don't know a party, so don't get me started. Okay, Jacoby is nice, but Ann is not. Now, if the governor wanted to come here and he bringing gifts to my community, y'all know I'm taking the gifts, because we've been through enough already, and I don't want to go through no more. Now, y'all just be quiet just a minute and let the governor say what he gonna say, and we gonna get this party started. You hear me? Okay, let's do it.
So we have already identified funds from the state of Florida. I've been in touch with Dr. Faison. We're going to be announcing some stuff tomorrow morning, which I think will help not only with security, but also an attempt to help these families. The fact of the matter is, you had a major league scumbag come from Clay County up here, And what he did is totally unacceptable in the state of Florida. We are not going to let people be targeted based on their race. We are going to stand up, and we are going to do what we need to do to make sure that evil does not triumph in the state of Florida. And that means we are going to work with Edward Waters so that they have whatever security they need. In Florida, we've already given a lot of money to Jewish day schools because they've been targeted with anti-Semitism. Well, let me tell you this. You are not going to target HBCUs in the state of Florida and get away with it. We're going to hold you accountable. We're not going to let it happen. And we thank what everybody's done, TK, the mayor, and just know that the state of Florida stands with the community. Help is on the way. God bless you all.
All right, folks, let's go to my panel right now. Joining us, Dr. Julianne Malveaux, President Emerita, Bennett College, economist and author. Also, Dr. Amakongo Dabinga, Senior, Professorial Lecturer, School of International Service at American University out of Washington, D.C. Renita Shannon, former state representative from Georgia, out of Atlanta. Glad to have all three of you here. Look, Julianne, I get it. I get folks who like to say, you know what, let's not do that. Let's not, look, this is about the moment. This is not about politics. But the reality, it is about politics. When you are someone who helps to create this climate, then you are also responsible for these things. And so the anger that we heard from people was justified because Governor Ron DeSantis has been playing the racist game when it comes to textbooks, when it comes to critical race theory, when it comes to wokeness, when it comes to DEI. And so when you have these white racists, when they see folks like him, they are emboldened by folks like him.
You know, he single-handedly, frankly, has created a climate in Florida that is anti-Black, using the anti-woke thing as a trope, but the fact that he has been anti-Black. What he did with AP Black History, and we can go down the list. We don't need to relist his stuff. People are angry at him. He set up a climate. You know, he set the table, so he's mad that someone came to eat at the table. He set it up for a racist to go get himself a gun. They liberalized gun access in Florida. Set up a case for him to go get the gun and set up the racist rhetoric that would drive him to Edward Waters College and then to a dollar store in the Black community to execute 3 people. People should have been doing a lot more than booing at DeSantis. And the sister who said, oh, this is not about politics, I mean, she's wrong. She's absolutely wrong. And of course, she's got to score her political points. And so I suppose she did. But what she also did was show the kind of myopia that none of us likes to see. You know good and well that DeSantis not only set the table, he put the forks and knives and spoons on it. He set this up. And nobody should be surprised that it happened.
Congo, I get Julianne's point when she says we shouldn't recount these things, but actually we should. And the reason I say we have to is because we have to be drilling this into the heads of people to understand and not let them forget. This is and again, I need people to understand the racist shooter, he pulled the trigger. He was the one responsible for this. But when you are engaged in a climate setting situation, when you are, again, attacking wokeness, attacking activists, passing bills to target them, when you are splitting congressional districts and you're targeting Black people as well, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis has been on a direct assault on Black people since he became governor, and his decision to run for president and the Republican Party has been on a full-scale assault of Black people since Donald Trump we went into the Oval Office.
not to mention removing black elected officials from office as well. And so when you look at what he's doing, you know, what's really, really sad about it is, given his quote unquote anti-woke legislation, how are they going to teach this? How are they going to teach this particular incident in the classroom? You know, because you can't really talk about race. You can't say it was a result of racism. This is a result of his rhetoric. And he literally said, we're not going to allow people to be targeted by their race. His whole politics is based on targeting people by their race, starting with black people, from everything that he's doing in the schools. And then going back to your last segment as well, the beginning of your segment, people want to be quick and say, oh, it's not about the rhetoric, it's about mental health. But when black people kill folks in the hood, they don't want to call it mental health. They want to have a whole group of us say, this is what all of us do. But when it comes to an individual white person, lone wolf, mental health, and they want to go to mental health and the fact that the gun was purchased legally. And that's all that matters. The fact of the matter is that Ron DeSantis in Florida does not have an infrastructure in place to help black people, because he's part of destroying the black community. And so when Councilwoman Pittman is saying, you know, let's not boo him, we're going to get this party started. This is not a party. This is an assault on our people. And every single day, Ron DeSantis, Vivek Ramaswamy, and all of these other people feel like they can build their campaigns, build their whole infrastructure politically on the backs of black people. He's sitting there talking about, we're identifying resources. Why don't the resources already exist? He's sitting there talking about, oh, working to help law enforcement. Why aren't you helping the black community by getting the guns out of there? You're talking about giving help towards some Jewish schools that need support after threats. Yeah, that's definitely needed. But what have you been doing to protect black people at any point in time? You are the target. Rhetoric matters. It's the same with Trump. It's the same reason why hate crimes are up over 200% in some communities across the country since 2016. And it's not about these individuals. It's about the hate that inspires them and emboldens them to go and do these actions.
It is always interesting, Renita, after the fact, to hear politicians talk about what we need to do. And, oh, if we pass these gun laws, it would have no effect whatsoever. These are the people who literally passed laws saying, forget concealed handgun permits. We're just going to make open carry just the law. Florida, Texas, Tennessee, we could go on and on and on. These people, they make it so much easier to have guns and then go, oh, my God, I can't believe these things are happening. Yeah, I can.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And that is what disgusts me about the press conference that we saw, because number one, here a few things disgust me. Number one, you can tell that Ron DeSantis has no authenticity in how he's speaking to this crowd. And why should he? He doesn't feel bad because he is the person who ginned up all of this. Now, I grew up in Florida, so I can attest to the fact that racism did not start with Ron DeSantis, but he certainly cultivated an environment that makes racists feel emboldened, as many other GOP governors have done, including Brian Kemp here in Atlanta. Also, looking at the press conference, I'm seeing his wife smiling. Why is she smiling? Black people have just been a victim of a hate crime, and you're standing there looking stupid, smiling. It's ridiculous. And finally, to the councilwoman who stepped in and said, y'all just give him a break and please listen to him, I'm very disgusted with her, because nobody has asked you to come out and be the Negro herder. Ron DeSantis should have to stand for the rhetoric that he has been telling the people of Florida in his campaigns and even after he took office. And he should not be shielded from how the general public feels about this. Those people who are booing him, which I'm glad they did, those people who are booing him are not thinking about political parties. They are thinking about the fact that this man, Ron DeSantis, has put a target on black people in the state of Florida, and now those chickens have come home to roost. And so really, it's time out for folks trying to sanitize black pain, and it's time out for other black people jumping in, trying to protect and defend white people from accountability for things that they need to be held accountable for.
That's right.
Absolutely. And he has to own up to what he has said, what he has done. And the bottom line here, what we also have to realize, we are dealing with clear, undeniable white domestic terrorism. What you have had since 2016, you saw the cutting back of resources, Julian, by Republicans for the Department of Justice to deal with this. This is what they do. So the bottom line here is we know what's going on here. And the fact of the matter is Republicans want to deny the reality that white domestic terrorism exists. If you had Muslims shooting up places all across America and killing white folks, they would be trying to lock up every Muslim in this country.
You know, Roland, not only The triple standard, not even double standard, is so stark here. But the other thing is that the Republican Party is attempting to defund the Department of Justice. They've been talking about this for some time. Now with McCarthy on his impeachment trip, they're talking about less resources to the Department of Justice. But this is a time when we need more. I remember when the FBI put out a memo talking about Black terrorist extremists. Yeah, and Black identity extremists. Where is the white identity extremist? Where is the memo about this? You have this kid, I mean, he's 20-some years old, but he's obviously been simmering in the rhetoric of DeSantis and his cronies. He's mentally ill, but I don't care how mentally ill he is. Mental illness has nothing to do with it. When Black folks are mentally ill and they have episodes, what happens? They get shot. Somebody shoots them. No one stops and says, gee, was he mentally ill? No, they just go on and kill him. So why is it that these people get excuses for massacring our people? And understand that Florida was a state that had more lynchings than other states. Florida was a state where they basically enabled all kinds of anti-Blackness back in the day, the 1930s, where Black people were lynched or killed because they simply tried to vote. And now you've got this little white boy who decides, for whatever reason, he's going to just create havoc. And I'm glad they have not released the manifestos, because it might get some other crazy white people ideas. And let's be clear, I don't care if you're crazy or not. If you're that GD crazy, someone needs to put you in an institution. Lock your behind up. We cannot make excuses for this kind of stuff, because basically we're living in a climate where it's okay to hate Black people, where the rhetoric in 44 states is you cannot teach about race. And so that kind of rhetoric allows a fool like that, emboldens a fool like that, to go and kill people, and boldly so. Told his daddy, go look on my computer to see these manifestos. It's disgusting, but it's beyond disgusting. I'm with Renita, that sister who said that let's listen to DeSantis. No, let's not listen to DeSantis. Let's let DeSantis be permanently silenced. Get out of politics, dude. Just go somewhere. And again, Renita is right on point. I was looking at that woman and thinking, why is she smiling? Is she about to do a runway turn?
Right.
I mean, she looked like she's a silly model, a vacuous model at that.
Hold tight 1 second. I got to go to break. We come back. I want to talk more about the refusal of the country to confront the reality of white domestic terrorism. Plus, we'll also share with you what President Joe Biden had to say in remarks he made with regards to this racist shooting in Jacksonville that's left 3 Black people dead 1 year after 10 Black people were gunned down in a Buffalo supermarket. You're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network. If you are watching on YouTube, please hit that like button, folks. We also want you to support us in what we do. Download the Black Star Network app, Apple phone, Android phone, Apple TV, Android TV, Roku, Amazon Fire TV, Xbox One, Samsung Smart TV. Also, please join our Bring the Funk fan club. Your dollars make it possible for us to do what we do. Send your check and money orders to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C., 20037-0196. Cash App, $RM Unfiltered. PayPal are Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is RolandSMartin.com. Roland@RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. And be sure to get my book, White Fear, How the Browning of America is Making White Folks Lose Their Minds. I keep telling y'all it's timely. Bookstores nationwide. Download the audio version on Audible. Buy your copy on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Target, Books A Million. We'll be right back.
Hatred on the streets, a horrific scene, a white nationalist rally that descended into deadly violence.
White people are losing their damn minds.
An angry pro-Trump mob storms the U.S. Capitol.
We're about to see the rise of what I call white minority resistance. We have seen white folks in this country who simply cannot tolerate Black folks voting.
I think what we're seeing is the inevitable result of violent denial.
This is part of American history. Every time that people of color have made progress, whether real or symbolic, there has been what Carol Anderson at Emory University calls white rage as a backdrop. backlash.
This is the rise of the Proud Boys and the Boogaloo Boys. America, there's going to be more of this.
Here's all the Proud Boys, guys.
This country is getting increasingly racist in its behaviors and its attitudes because of the fear of white people.
The fear that they're taking our jobs, they're taking our resources, they're taking our women. This is white fear.
On the next Get Wealthy with me, Deborah Owens, America's Wealth Coach, I'm sure you've heard that saying that the only thing guaranteed is death and taxes. The truth is that the wealthy get wealthier by understanding tax strategy. And that's exactly the conversation that we're going to have on the next Get Wealthy, where you're going to learn wealth hacks that help you turn your wages into wealth.
Taxes is one of the largest expenses you ever have. You really got to know how to manage that thing and get that under control so that you can build wealth.
That's right here on Get Wealthy, only on Black Star Network.
I'm Faraji Muhammad, live from LA. And this is The Culture. The Culture is a two-way conversation. You and me. We talk about the stories, politics, the good, the bad, and the downright ugly. So join our community every day at 3 p.m. Eastern and let your voice be heard. Hey, we're all in this together. So let's talk about it and see what kind of trouble we can get into. It's The Culture. Weekdays at 3, only on the Black Star Network.
Hello, we're the Critter Fixers. I'm Dr. Bernard Hodges.
And I'm Dr. Terrence Ferguson.
And you're tuned in to
Roland Martin Unfiltered.
President Joe Biden spoke about the racist shooting in Jacksonville at an event earlier today at the White House. Watch this.
A lot's happening around things you wouldn't think would be happening today on the anniversary of 60 years of March. I spoke to the governor and
who is he meeting with?
Black community leaders in Jacksonville, Florida. The sheriff is an African American. I spent a significant amount of time speaking to everyone, including the governor of Florida. And as I've said to the country, we can't let hate prevail, and it's on the rise. It's not diminishing. Silence, I believe, we've all said many times, silence is complicity. We're not going to remain silent. And so we have to act against this hate-fueled violence, and you saw what's happening there. By the way, almost 5 years to the day that 5 young blacks were killed in Jacksonville 5 years earlier at a gun shop, a store they were doing kids' toys. But you know, and we have to speak out that there's a whole group of extreme people trying to erase history, trying to walk away from it. I mean, the idea that we're sitting here, I never thought that I'd be president, let alone be president, and having a discussion on why books are being banned in American schools. And you know, as an administration, we're going to continue to march forward. Jobs and freedom that we've worked so hard for, this group has worked harder than anybody for, and we're going to get it done. So I want to thank the group for their leadership and their partnership, and I want to turn this over to the Vice President for a few minutes, and then we'll get moving.
Thank you, Mr. President. Our country was founded on many noble principles, including e pluribus unum, out of many one. And to live up to those ideals, I think at this moment in time requires moral clarity on behalf of every American about what is at stake right now. The vast majority of us have so much more in common than what separates us. Yet there are those who are intentionally trying to divide us as a nation. And I believe each of us has a duty to not allow factions to sever our unity. Our diversity is our strength, and our unity is our power as a nation. And I do believe that we must be guided by knowing that we have so much more in common than what separates us. We must be committed to building communities, building coalitions, understanding that is how we strengthen ourselves as a nation. And the members of the King family are here. Ambassador Andy Young is here. I'm gonna, if I may, for the children of Coretta Scott King, paraphrase something she said, which is that the fight for civil rights, for justice, for equality must be fought and won with each generation. We have Yolanda King here who epitomizes that understanding, that it is incumbent on each of us at this moment in time in our country to stand for the sake of unity and foundational principles that out of many, we are one. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you.
Mr. President, as we are in this moment of you have laws, you have policies, you have executive orders. Mr. President, how do you prevent this takeover? Is it a hard issue? How do you intend to stop the takeover that you just said must stop?
I'm talking directly to the American people because I think the vast majority of the American people agree with this table. But we have to understand this is serious. I said a little earlier when I came in and sat down, I think this is as serious a potential turning point for the negative as it was when the turning point for the positive when your dad organized that march. I really think this is a critical time. We have groups, a significant minority, but I think they want to change the direction that we've been working on so hard and making such significant progress on for so long. We can't let it happen. We just have to speak to it.
Sir, you plan to travel to that? Have you spoken with any of the families of the victims?
It's the last thing I'll speak to and get this moving. I've spoken to the authorities in Jacksonville, and I even spoke to the governor as well last night for some time, all the folks. And right now, I asked for whether or not it's appropriate for the local people to contact the families. 2 of them are prepared to be contacted. 1 does not want to be contacted. I'm letting this just let things settle because, everybody deals with profound loss in a different way. And it's important that, I know from experience, it's important to try to do it in a way that is most helpful and eases the anxiety the most. So I haven't spoken to them yet. Thank you.
All right, thanks everybody.
Again, President Joe Biden meeting with members of the King family and other civil rights leaders today on the 60th anniversary of the March on Washington for Jobs and Freedom. Before we went to the break, Omakongo, I was talking about white domestic terrorism. And I think one of the fundamental problems here is that still in this country, white folks don't want to call it what it is. We saw headlines from people, tweets that went out, racially charged, racially tinged. No, it was clear and undeniable the targeting of black people. And so I think the problem that we also have is white folks don't even want to use the word white. We don't want to even say white domestic terrorism. We don't want to say white supremacy. We don't want to say white nationalism. And to me, that's part of the problem.
That's absolutely part of the problem. The inability to name a thing, going back to Dr. Malveau's point with Christopher Wray, and they were quick to come out with black identity extremists, and Jeff Sessions, was there at the time, and they had no problem talking about it. And they came out later with the fact, with some reports about white identity extremism and the like. But when the CBC asked them to rescind the report on black identity extremists, they wouldn't do that because they were saying talking about things like that is going to put a bigger target on us. Well, at the same time, time not devoting enough attention to what's happening with white identity extremists in this country. The fact of the matter is, these white identity extremists, these white racists, they have killed more law enforcement officers than any black group, than any Muslim group, than Al-Qaeda, than anybody else in the last few years. And this is documented. And so when you have something that's supposed to be this large, this should be something that should be in a crisis mode. And that is one of the reasons why I believe that Biden, I know he likes to be bipartisan and the like, but one of the first people who should have gone was Christopher Wray from the FBI. You needed somebody like a Doug Jones in there who's going to be aggressive in targeting these people, because as long as these guys are just issuing reports, I appreciate what the DOJ is doing in investigating some of those things, could still be a little bit more aggressive. But as long as the FBI is just initiating reports and being more reactionary, this stuff is just going to continue. And I appreciate what Joe Biden is saying, but what is the administration doing as it relates to taking a stronger stance? We need all hands on deck. And once again, it's not just people like DeSantis, not just Trump, it's people like the Ramaswamis of the world, you know, the black and brown apologists for white people, you know, someone like a Ramaswamy who actually talks about the Klan, you know, calling Kendi and Representative Presley part of the Klan, speaks about the Klan as if they were past tense. These guys did some bad things. They're still here today. White racism is real. White identity extremism is real. And if we don't call it out, it is only going to continue. And they are attacking our children. They're coming to our campuses. They're coming to our churches. They're coming to our dollar stores, every Tops Market, everywhere we are to be found, they will hunt us. And so we need to be more aggressive in doing what we're doing here today, calling a thing, not mental illness. People want to bring up that Baker Act thing. Well, if the Baker Act thing was in 2017, why are you still even bringing it up? It was 6 years ago. Stone cold racist, period, bottom line, full stop. Work on targeting that and build from there, not the mental illness side, which they continually defund, and which Trump made it also easier for people with mental illness issues to get guns. So stop that.
Renita, they consistently, again, don't want to call a thing a thing. And we can't just continue to act as if, oh, it was just happenstance. Dylan Roof was happenstance. The killings in Buffalo, happenstance. No, these were people who specifically were targeting black people. That is called white domestic terrorism.
Yes, you're right. And it's very frustrating because time and time again, when anything happens to any other community, whether it be in recent times or even in the past, no one in the country, including media, has any problems calling it out. So we know what happened to Japanese Americans in this country. We know what has happened anytime there's a hate crime against Jewish folks. The media have no problem just saying what it is, anti-Semitism or attacking of Asian folks. But when it comes to black folks, it's always this sanitizing of black pain. And it's frustrating. And I have to say that white liberals, Democrats are also a part of that. Joe Biden is a part of that. His comments to me were very disappointing. His comments that you just showed just now, we could have gotten that from any executive director of any nonprofit. Just pick one. Sir, you are the president. So what you need to be saying is that you are going to focus the DOJ on tracking down white domestic terrorists and letting the public know what is your plan to actually focus on this. Because as so many have already mentioned previously in their comments, there were plans that we didn't even need to focus on what the Justice Department determined as black identity extremists, which are people who were just standing up for racial justice issues. So what we need to hear are not more platitudes from the president, platitudes that aren't even true. It's not true to say, oh, this country is too busy to hate. No, the country has a lot of time to hate, and that is what is happening. So we need to know, we don't have to know the exact details of what the DOJ is going to do, but we need to know that this is going to be a focus for the DOJ to track down white domestic terrorists who are interested in committing acts of racial terror. That is what we need to hear from people who are elected and actually have power.
Yeah, I mean, we have to call a thing a thing. Unfortunately, we're not seeing elected officials actually do that. And these things are going to continue. It is going to metastasize. Look, you have a lot of these young white boys who are being emboldened. It's there in the FBI documents about, again, how they are trying to radicalize young white men by saying, oh, all these negative things are happening to you. You can't get jobs. All these things are lies, but they don't care, Julian. They are all about, again, focusing on making them comfortable, not pressuring them, and not just calling it what it is.
I like that word comfortable in a context, Roland, because, we can't teach about race because it makes some people uncomfortable. And at the same time, you have these racists who are bending over backwards to make these little putrid white boys comfortable. When we talk, who's supposed to be comfortable? As Kamala in the clip you played talked about e pluribus uno, out of many one. That's BS. This country has really never, that's nice rhetoric, but the fact is that this country has never talked about out of many one. If it was out of many one at the end of enslavement, we would have gotten our 40 acres and a mule. Black people made tremendous gains between enslavement and Reconstruction. And then they spent the next 100 years trying to take those gains back. And even today, when a young white boy is emboldened to go get himself some guns with his crazy, mentally ill, whatever he is behind, go get himself some guns and go into the hood. Why? Because he can. Why? Because he's been reading the books that they can't teach. He's been reading the wrong stuff because he's been hanging out with the Klan. And so that smarmy fellow, whatever, Vivek, who says, the Klan was a long time ago. No, the Klan is now. The Klan is now. They don't have to put pointy hats on their head. All they have to do is take some guns to our hood, and they've been doing it. Or attack a brother who's just trying to do his job on the Montgomery Wharf. Or, again, we go on and on and on about what has happened. What has happened is that the Orange Man and his ilk have essentially given people permission to attack Black people. And they're doing it. And as Renita says, if they do it to anybody else, there's a name for it. When they do it to Black people, it's well, maybe there's mental illness. No, maybe there's simple racism and anti-Blackness.
Indeed. All right, folks, gotta go to a break. We come back more on Roland Martin Unfiltered right here on the Black Star Network. We will talk about COVID on the rise. Folks, don't play games with this. We'll also talk about the impact on the heart. I'm also here in Atlanta. Chris Tucker had a foundation, had his annual golf tournament, had a great time out there. So we will, and today's also his birthday, so we can also show you some of that took place as well. You're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered right here on the Black Star Network.
You go into a barbershop in a 700 credit score neighborhood, Black or white, they're talking about their ideas and they're talking about how they're going to move on those things. You go to a barbershop at a 500 credit score, equal brilliance, but bad culture, they're talking about other people. You go to a winner's barbershop, here's what I'm doing. You go to the barbershop where people feel defeated, they're talking about other people, either celebrities or people they admire, but also often, I don't like Joe. I don't like Roland Martin. Well, let me tell you something. I don't understand people. How could you not like anything here you see? You should just be like, this is amazing. It's cool. You may not even like how he does it or how I do it, but it's like, you know what? They're succeeding. They're killing it. All you should be is, that's fantastic. But if I don't like me, I'm not going to like you. If I don't feel good about me, it's hard for me to feel good about you. If I don't respect me, don't expect me to respect you. If I don't love me, I don't have a clue how to love you. And here's the big one. If I don't have a purpose in my life, I'm going to make your life a living hell.
When you talk about Blackness and what happens in Black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in Black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible. Check some money orders. Go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037- 0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com.
I'm Faraji Muhammad, live from LA. And this is The Culture. The Culture is a two-way conversation. You and me. We talk about the stories, politics, the good, the bad, and the downright ugly. So join our community every day at 3 p.m. Eastern and let your voice be heard. Hey, we're all in this together. So let's talk about it and see what kind of trouble we can get into. It's The Culture, weekdays at 3, only on the Black Star Network.
Bruce Smith, creator and executive producer of the Proud Family, Louder and Prouder, and you're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered.
All right, folks, we have been obviously following this story out of Jacksonville, Florida, where 3 black people were gunned down at a Dollar General store on Saturday. The reaction on the weekend was kind of interesting. Guys, cue up what the crazy, deranged Republican Vivek actually had to say, because this also speaks to the mentality of a lot of these individuals. And not only that, have y'all noticed something? Renita, did you notice something? That the black woman who was shot and killed was pregnant and her unborn baby died? Where are the pro-lifers?
The case, and it's
Is
what we
Renita
already
there?
know. Yes. Can you hear me?
Now we got you. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say exactly. I noticed the same thing that you noticed. You know, where are the folks who claim that they are just so invested in, you know, making sure that calling themselves pro-life? Where are they? And we know where they are. They're silent as usual. They are silent when we talk about maternal mortality, which is affecting black women more than anybody else. They're always silent when it comes to, you know, actually talking about, again, the pain of the black community. It's always completely crickets from them. So I know it's the same just as you, and I was not surprised. And I don't expect to hear anything from them, frankly.
Yeah, I mean, they're gonna be real quiet on the Congo.
Fact of the matter is, their guns are more like their babies, and they care more about their guns than other people's babies and other people's children. And we've seen this whether it's situations with Philando Castile, who had a license to be armed, and like they care more about the guns. And so when we talk about pro-life, even Chris Christie said this when he was governor or running, you know, a while ago in some election. He talked about you have to be pro-life, you know, after birth as well. But even that, I remember, you know, your legendary debate with one of the Republican people on your show. There's a difference between being pro-life and anti-abortion. These people may be anti-abortion, but they don't give a damn about our lives in any way, shape, or form. In the womb, out of the womb, toddler, anything. They don't care, and they're quick to show it at every juncture. We don't even got to cue them up. They're quick to show it, and this is just the latest example. And to see that image of him walking up to her, you know, and she's just dropping off for Uber, doing the work to support her family. All of these so-called pro-life people should be the first to speak up, but not for us.
And that's just, I think, just what it boils down to when, you know, we have to point these things out because they get real quiet. They get real quiet. And I'm just, and I am incensed too, when I see the explanation, oh yeah, mental illness. And what I'm saying to our audience, we can't play that game as well. We have to say white domestic terrorist and then give the name. And we got to repeatedly do that. Otherwise, they are going to try to call it something else, Julian.
Absolutely. And, you know, to the point about the pro-lifers, they're pro-life, but they're not pro-black life. They're pro-white life. They just need to call it that way, and we need to call it that way. Why, if, you know, with a pregnant, there have been women who have had miscarriages and been tried for fetal murder. Been tried for fetal murder, but you know, these are black women who've been tried for fetal murder. So these people are hypocrites of the highest degree, and we know it. And as you say, we're basically sitting in a situation where this has become all too permissible. It's okay to be anti-Black, to speak these sentiments publicly, and to hide behind this BS of mental illness. And if you're so worried about mental illness, fund mental illness. We have cut back the two things that people are missing in their health plans: dental care and mental care. Those things have been cut back. So the hypocrisy that exists in this country is difficult to deal with. And Roland, I know I was out there on Saturday, and just such a blow to enjoy the good feelings, the good energy, and then to get home, turn the television on, and see this Jacksonville shooting. It's repugnant, and that's the nicest word I can use.
Folks, hold on one second. Fani Willis goes after Mark Meadows. He does not want her to try him in state court. He wants to move to federal court. We will talk about that. Plus, the sister judge in D.C. ain't playing. Donald Trump is, Lord, he is raging mad because she set his trial date for 2024. I will tell you exactly what date it's supposed to start on. Next on Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network.
On a Next to Balanced Life with me, Dr. Jackie. Summer is flying by and back to school is just around the corner and fall is here. That's right, a new season is upon us. On our next show, we talk about jumping into action and putting procrastination in the rearview mirror. That's on a Next, A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie here on Black Star Network.
Next on the Black Table with me, Greg Carr. Brown versus the Board of Education. The history books call it the court decision that ended racial segregation in American schools. But a brand new book, Jim Crow's Pink Slip, uncovers a devastating unintended consequence of that 1954 Supreme Court decision.
We may, if we were lucky, have been the very last generation of Black students to have experienced these generations of Black teachers who have never been replaced.
Dr. Leslie Fenwick joins us to talk about her book and the actions following that landmark decision that dealt a virtual death blow to Black educators. That's next on the Black Table, right here on the Black Star Network.
Up next on The Frequency with me, Dee Barnes, we're going to talk to Leslie Segar, a.k.a. Big Les, and talk about her incredible career as a dancer, choreographer, and VJ of Rap City.
Magic Johnson was there, so half the NBA was there. Iman the supermodel, so all the supermodels were there every day. Actors, right. Like it was a who's who of who's who.
Right here on The Frequency in the Black Star Network.
I am Tommy Davidson. I play Oscar on Proud Family, Louder and Prouder.
Right now, I'm rolling with Roland Martin, unfiltered, uncut, unplugged, and undamn believable. You hear me?
Well, folks, Mark Meadows took the witness stand today as he was pleading with a judge to move his trial out of Georgia from state court to federal court. Meadows testified for almost 3 hours, said that he was that was challenging working in the White House. He also argued that because his role included working closely with state officials, his case should be tried in court. He does not want, and he's trying to make an argument here, Makongo, that a lot of his actions were done as a result of being chief of staff. But what Fani Willis has been saying is like, no, you violated the Hatch Act. You were making political decisions, political ideological decisions, not one that shields you because you were working at the behest of the president on behalf of the American people.
Yeah, absolutely. It is so amazing watching Meadows fall from whatever grace he had. The fact of the matter is, you can say you're following orders as chief of staff, but you don't have the right to try to overthrow the government just because your boss told you to do so. Even with the military, they're taught to not go and obey a command that they know will be a violation of an egregious way. So Mark Meadows, he is somebody who has been at the center of all of this from the beginning. He's tried to deny the opera. He tried to deny Fani Willis Taifa. Fani Taifa. I love that middle name. It's just beautiful. You know, he tried to deny her the opportunity to even have him come in and surrender himself last week. He's tried to have himself be protected in every way, shape, or form. And the fact that the judge did not agree to his request today and said that if he doesn't decide in the next few days, he has to report by September 6th. The doors have closed on this man. It is over. And Fani Willis is simply not playing. She doesn't care about timelines. She doesn't care about the elections. All she cares about is the law. And Mark Meadows, even if it does go up to federal court, he's still going to have to go through state standards if he's found guilty. So one way or another, Fani Willis is going to have her day. And when I say have her day, like, I'm speaking from somebody who believes that this man is guilty and should be, incarcerated. She is just following the law. She is just following the books and what they're supposed to be doing. And at the end of the day, Mark Meadows to actually get up there after denying every opportunity, January 6th Commission, never wanted to come forward and speak, gets up there today. It shows that he's scared. It shows that Fani Willis is doing her job. And it shows that really at the end of the day, one way or another, his goose is definitely cooked, period, bottom line.
I love how they really do not want this to happen in state court. Could it be, Renita? Because there's no pardon.
It's that, but it's also that they are charged with some really serious crimes in Georgia. The RICO Act is what the RICO statute is what Fani has charged them with. And I totally agree with her charging them with that. As you know, I was one of the people that was on the House committee that the Trump lawyers came before when they asked us to throw out the votes of Georgians and just decide the election for Trump so that he could have Georgia's electors to go towards his total presidential count. And in that process, these people presented evidence to us that was not true. And I believe they knowingly knew that their supposed evidence was not true. And they worked really hard to overturn an election. And that is a lot of conspiracy. Mark Meadows was involved. He was on the phone call where Trump was pressuring the Secretary of State to just find him the 11,000 votes. And none of that is something that taxpayers pay you to do. So his reasoning now that he was doing this because he's chief of staff, he was chief of staff for Trump, and this was all in the service of what he's supposed to do as a chief of staff, as a part of an administration. Rigging elections is not what taxpayers pay you to do. But I'm going to tell you something. Next week, September 6th is also the arraignment date for the 19 people charged in this indictment. And they, at that point, will have to enter a plea of guilty or not guilty. I predict that those hearings are going to be very, very interesting because the 19 that are charged, you look at them, none of these people are nuck if you buck. I know some of them. You take David Shaper, for example. He is somebody who was the chair of the Georgia Republicans, and now he's indicted for RICO. But before that, he was a senator when I got elected into the House. This guy is not nuck if you buck. These people are going to start turning, and right now they are all trying to find ways to avoid accountability, and I don't think that they are going to sit there and just take the rap for Trump. It's not going to happen.
Julian?
I'm just sitting here laughing. I'm thinking of a couple things. One, how the mighty have fallen. But two, when I had chief of staffs, and I've had them on more than one occasion, they try to talk sense into you. They say something to me like, Doc, you can't do that. Don't even try it. Mark Meadows did not talk sense into Trump. Not that you could talk sense into Trump. But I mean, Mark Meadows failed as an employee of the United States government. Donald John Trump was not writing him checks every month. The United States government was writing him checks every month. And in that role, it was his responsibility to basically pull the orange man's coattails and say, dude, you can't do that. That's wrong. But he seemed to think he drank the Kool-Aid. He seemed to think that he could get away with it. And now what he's finding is he can't. And what I'm loving is a press coverage of the conditions in this jail, which ought to give them all pause. As Renita said, I mean, you're going to start turning when you think about it, you're going to be in a jail where they got roaches, where the food is nasty, where you're going to be sitting in a cell, perhaps with some gangbangers who ain't thinking about you. Or maybe they are thinking about you, but not in the right way. I mean, basically, people are going to start turning. I mean, as you said, your friend, your colleague, state senator, he doesn't want to spend the night in jail. And what is ironic, of course, is that the black man who's one of the 19, he's still in jail. I mean, that's really ironic, and that does speak to the orange man, his integrity and his loyalty. But as I think the young lady, she said, he expects absolute loyalty, but he gives you none. And that's what we're seeing here now.
Let's talk about another court because the information came down today that, hey, Donald, you're going to be going to trial real soon. He, of course, is facing these federal trial. And Judge Tanya Chutkan said, guess what? March 4th, 2024. Trump is so mad. He's sitting here filing, posting stuff on his Truth Social, where he lies, is not truth, Omakongo, where I'm going to appeal that decision. Say, man, you can appeal it all you want to. The judge sets the date.
Exactly. It's amazing how he says one thing and does another. You know, he puts out the mugshot, which says don't surrender, but you only had to take the mugshot because you surrendered, right? He's the master of twisting what it is he thinks he can do and what other people are actually saying that he has to do. And we're talking about two cases where sisters are behind making sure that he's held accountable. And again, I know they got to be, all about the law, but it's all about accountability. And Judge Chutkan, she's not playing. She didn't give Jack Smith what he wanted. He wanted the date in January. Trump wanted the date in 2026, had no real reason for it. And so he's going to build and bluster all he wants on live social. But really, at the end of the day, he has to face these folks. That's why his lawyers are showing up. That's why when they call him, he's going to be there. And really, I just know that the more angry he gets, it's just going to be a matter of time before Judge Chutkan or someone else is going to have to shut him down with some type of gag order. I really thought that they were going to say he can't sell merchandise, but this isn't related to the Georgia case directly. But really, at the end of the day, he is going to continue and he's going to explode. And I'm just glad that there are people who are actually working to shut him down, and not only shut him down, but his entire entourage. And I'm glad that it's happening now. I'm glad that there's not going to be, let's just wait out of deference to whatever we're going to wait till after the election. No, you've already been given enough time. The fact of the matter is the Department of Justice waited like 14 to 18 months before they even decided to investigate you. And I will say, we got to be mindful of the fact, I think it's also shameful that with all of these indictments everywhere, there are no other current serving legislators being indicted for anything. The levels of protection that they are experiencing because of their jobs is giving them an ability to kind of have a little bit of a shield over them. That's also something that needs to be looked at maybe for another day. But the fact of the matter that Trump can only talk about whatever he wants on his social media, can't do it in the courtroom, this is what we call justice on the way.
Mm-hmm.
But the one I'm trying to figure out, Julian, is how do you go to court and propose you want the trial in 2026? That's literally more than 2 years away. And then when the judge says 9 down, then you can't give an argument why it should be sooner. So she was like, okay, fine, March 2024. Sorry.
I mean, the judge is right on time. How do you wait 2 years? I mean, what he's arguing is that the election cycle, well, dude, if you thought you were going to run for president, you should have committed all those crimes. I mean, the election cycle, the this, the that, the other. The judge is perfectly on point. People are basically not required, but they're committed to speedy trial. The Constitution calls for a speedy trial. So 2026, what is he? I mean, he's even well after the election. If he were elected well into his term, give me a break, dude. I mean, this man is so hilarious that it's not even funny, except for the fact that the future of our democracy is at stake here. But, I don't know if anybody saw the picture it was on social media of Muhammad Ali. They said, this is what 6'1", 215 pounds looks like. And it was Muhammad Ali. Just saying, put it side by side. This man wouldn't know the truth. Never mind. He doesn't know truth, but he also is full of excuses. We've seen this in his history in the past. We've seen it with the housing cases in Queens. We've seen it with the people he stiffed, who provided him with services. And now we're seeing it with his attempt to dance around the law. But these sisters are time enough for him. I mean, time enough for him.
See, this is what I love about white boy arrogance, Renita. So they go to court and they go, we want to be April 2026. And she's like, nah, I'm sorry, that's ridiculous. Okay, there are memories at hand. People can be, it's like, no, we're not doing that. So then she says, okay, here's a time frame. Give me a more reasonable time frame. They're like, no, it's take it or leave it. So she's like, we're leaving it. But again, it shows you their arrogance. They didn't even say, okay, fine, Judge. You're not going to say April 2026. How about April 2025? No, they offered nothing. Arrogant.
Right, total arrogance. And I'm just living for the judge's notes on this because, listen, nobody is sick of things being unfair more than Black women. And the judge's notes, when she wrote back why this trial would not be pushed back to what he wanted, he basically said, listen, I have a job, I have stuff I have to do, so it's like going to be inconvenient for the trial to start anytime soon. And she wrote back, look, partner, everybody has a JOB. And now showing up for your trial is one of your new JOBs. And so between this and the note that Fani wrote to him, wrote to whoever, I think it was Mark Meadows, who asked if he could have a longer amount of time to turn himself in. And she let him know very quickly that was a professional courtesy that I gave you, the 2 weeks. It's just really funny. Like, they are not playing the radio with them. And I think that this is the first time that many of them are not experiencing that white privilege that they are used to. And that usually works to get them out of a jam. And that is what is making them so mad, is that the white privilege card is getting declined in this process. And they are being held accountable. But it's like I said over the weekend, they can fool around if they want to, but the Fulton County Jail is not the place you want to go. So they better stop playing with these people, because Fulton County Jail is currently, and this is what will happen if Trump violates his bond agreement, he could end up in pretrial detention, which means he could end up in the Fulton County Jail, which is currently under DOJ investigation. It's a place where LaShawn Thompson was eaten alive by bed bugs. Bed bugs know no respect of person. So they're not going to care that you were the former president. And so, the jail is terrible. I've long been a proponent that our Fulton County Jail should be closed because it is so deplorable, but it's not closed and it is still open. And if he keeps, acting the way that he's acting, and if he violates the bond agreement, he could actually see himself in that jail.
You know what? I guess every time they do something, I think about that brother who was working the hotel who said, it's above me now. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. It's above me.
It's real.
Every time, that's what I think of. He goes, it's above me now. So I love to see them actually, scream, because they are just, again, you're seeing the arrogance in real time. And again, Donald Trump is hoping. He's hoping that if he becomes president, he can just sit here and just wave himself away. Nah, partner, ain't happening. So based upon, if nothing changes, he is going to be going on trial in the middle of the Republican primary. Love it.
Awesome.
Love it. Love it. In fact, y'all, I'll tell you what's so funny. I was at the Dave Chappelle show Saturday night, and his brother gonna tell me, and I don't know what the hell he was thinking. He was leaving. He goes, man, vote Republican. I said, "Are you out your damn mind?" He
what
was
had
like,
he been?
"No, so I told his ass point blank. I said, man, I ain't voting no damn Republican. I said, they against this, voting rights, they against civil rights, broke it all down. He was like, man, no, a lot of us, we really conservative. I was like, you kiss my ass. I said, ain't no way in hell I'm voting for Trump. That ain't gonna happen. All right, y'all, going to a break. I'll be right back. Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network.
You go into a barbershop in a 700 credit score neighborhood, black or white, they're talking about their ideas and they're talking about how they're going to move on those things. You go to a barbershop at a 500 credit score, equal brilliance, but bad culture, they're talking about other people. go to a winner's barbershop, here's what I'm doing. You go to the barbershop of where people feel defeated, they talk about other people, either celebrities or people they admire, but also often, I don't like Joe. I don't like Roland Martin. But let me tell you something. I don't understand people. How could you not like anything here you see? You should just be like, this is amazing. It's cool. You may not even like how he does it or how I do it, but it's like, you know what? They're succeeding. They're killing it. All you should be is, that's fantastic. But if I don't like me, I'm not gonna like you. If I don't feel good about me, it's hard for me to feel good about you. If I don't respect me, don't expect me to respect you. If I don't love me, I don't have a clue how to love you. And here's the big one. If I don't have a purpose in my life, I'm gonna make your life a living hell.
On the next A Balanced Life with me, Dr. Jackie. Summer is flying by and back to school is just around the corner and fall is here. That's right, a new season is upon us. On our next show, we talk about jumping into action and putting procrastination in the rearview mirror. That's on a next A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie here on Black Star Network.
I'm Faraji Muhammad, live from LA. And this is The Culture. The Culture is a two-way conversation. You and me. We talk about the stories, politics, the good, the bad, and the downright ugly. So join our community every day at 3 p.m. Eastern and let your voice be heard. Hey, we're all in this together. So let's talk about it and see what kind of trouble we can get into. It's The Culture, weekdays at 3, only on the Black Star Network.
Hey, it's John Murray, the executive producer of the new Sherry Shepherd Talk Show.
This is your boy, Earthquake.
And you're tuned in to
Roland Martin, Unfiltered.
All right, folks. We have been seeing a dramatic increase in late summer in new COVID cases. Hospitals all across the country are reporting an increase in hospitalizations. Not only that, we are also seeing some people bring back mask mandates as a result as well. And so there's just been so much where people just sort of act as if, well, everything is just fine. But we're seeing it. And what is causing that? But also, one of the things that we're seeing the impacts of long COVID. We're now seeing doctors and studies now talk about how significant that is, but also the impact of COVID on the heart. That was one of the issues that we talked early on with various doctors, people like Ebony Hilton and others who say, hey, we don't really know what's going on here. And it's going to take some time to really understand the long-term implications of COVID. Joining us right now is Alexia Gaffney. She is Dr. Alexia Gaffney. She's an infectious disease specialist. She joins us right now. Doc, glad to have you here. First and foremost, what is going on with this increase we're seeing in places all across the country in new COVID cases? What's happening?
So I think part of it is just we're testing again. COVID never fully went away. It never disappeared. There was never not circulating cases of COVID-19. But now we're starting to see an uptick in cases. And with that, we're starting to see an uptick in hospitalizations. And so now people are paying attention again. Summer months certainly bring a decrease in respiratory transmitted infections because we are outdoors, right? We're not crammed into closed-in spaces together. And so the spread is somewhat decreased, but it was never a zero. We're talking about it now because there's been a significant increase and like a doubling in the rates of positive COVID test rates. So in the beginning of the summer, it wasn't even 1% of positive 1% of all COVID tests were positive results. And now we're up to like 10, 11% in the last week or so, which was a doubling in percentage of positive cases from about 4 to 5% just 2 weeks ago. So the numbers are rising. And of course, people are getting concerned because children are heading back to school. The weather is getting cooler. We'll all be heading indoors, and we're heading into our natural cough, cold, and flu season. And in the last 3 years, that has also included COVID-19. So we just have to keep our eyes on the number. We have to pay attention, and we have to remain vigilant. You know, this whole idea of, oh, the pandemic is over. Okay, COVID is with us. It's here to stay, and it's going to be part of our lives. So if we're not using the language of pandemic, that's fine, but we're still living, breathing human beings, and COVID is still an airborne respiratory transmitted infection that we have to remain vigilant about.
So is it also because, frankly, we just relax tremendously? I can tell you, look, I still do lots of flying, and I'm always rocking my mask. But I'm telling you, it used to be half of the plane. It used to be 25%. I'm telling you right now, it might not even be 5% of the people who put a mask on. And there's so many people who also have bought into this whole thing that, oh, you know what, that stuff just don't work. And yeah, I'm confused. You're a doctor. So if masks don't work, why y'all wear them?
Exactly.
And in fact, and Doc, here's what's even crazy. One of my nieces got diagnosed with doctors, and the medical people were giving her hell about taking the vaccine and about wearing a mask. And I'm like, what the hell are y'all doing?
Yeah, we're still suffering from this cognitive dissonance. Masks absolutely do work. And whenever people come into my office and try to tell me, oh, well, the mask didn't work anyway, I let them know I took care of thousands of people with COVID, and I never picked up that infection, whether I was out in the hallway with someone, closed in an exam room with someone for 10 minutes, 20 minutes, 30, 45 minutes. I did not pick up that infection because I was hyper vigilant about mask use, about protecting my eyes, about hand washing. I was serious about COVID precautions, and we know that this thing could have been worse if we did not put mask mandates in place when the timing was appropriate for that. And I think that if mask mandates come back, I think we're going to have a harder time getting people back into masks, but I think that we need to take that seriously. The masks absolutely do work. They do help to limit the spread and acquisition of the infection. It limits you giving it to people. It limits people giving it to you in plain English, and we have to take that seriously. It's an absolute myth for people to say that mask use does not work. And, you know, I challenge anyone who thinks that masks don't prevent the spread of infection to go into a surgery or a medical procedure and say, you know what, team, I am just going to forego all of your risk-reducing procedures. I don't want you to wash your hands. I don't want you to wear sterile gloves. I don't want you to wear a mask. Like, just go ahead and put me at risk. We wouldn't do that every day on a day-to-day basis in the healthcare setting predating COVID if there was not a benefit to wearing masks and decreasing the spread of infection. So they absolutely work, and we have to stop running with these myths and these lies. And, you know, quite honestly, I feel like there's a responsibility for the media to just not let people say whatever they want to say or give their unqualified opinions. But that's a thing because, you know, in America, we think we just have a right to do that.
Let's talk about what is going on, what we're seeing now, COVID and the heart. There's a lot of conversation about that.
Yeah. So we know, I'll start with the vaccines, right? So with vaccinations, there is a very small chance of someone developing myocarditis or inflammation of the heart muscle or pericarditis, so inflammation around the thin lining or sac that the heart sits within. That risk is highest in adolescent males, so males around age 13 to 21. But even with that particular group being the highest risk for experiencing that, it usually comes with the second dose of the vaccine. And the risk is actually really, really low. You're actually more likely to develop myocarditis or pericarditis from COVID-19 infection itself. And, there's not a myth between the COVID-19 vaccine and cardiac arrest. And I know there was a recent celebrity incident that really put an uptick back in that conversation and led to people, just flying off at the handle with misinformation about that. But the risk is incredibly low. And the other thing is that bed rest, some anti-inflammatories will actually resolve that. And we've not really seen any significant long-term issues. 80% of people who have had myocarditis from the COVID-19 vaccine, which is only a couple of hundred people, those people are better and back to their baseline within 90 days of the incidents. Other things that can be done to decrease the risk of that, if someone is concerned about the risk, is you can actually space the time frame between the first and the second dose of the vaccination, because that's where we're most likely to see it. And for those people who have been accepting of the vaccine, it hasn't really been a thing that has been definitively linked to the subsequent booster doses. So we were seeing it in the initial series between the first and the second dose of the vaccination. So I think that's something that we need to keep in mind, that the actual infection itself is still going to pose a lot greater risk for any short and long-term complications than the vaccine.
I had there's this dumbass doctor, Lane Rolling, whatever, and he's, he's on Instagram and he's running. So he got mad at me because I blasted him because he tried to say that Bronny James, the son of LeBron James, who went to cardiac arrest, they're signing out everything to COVID. Oh, Jamie Foxx, same thing. And so I blasted him by saying, I said, how can you call yourself a real doctor when you are saying these things are happening, when you have no knowledge of any of these patients' medical history whatsoever, but you're just running your mouth? And so he's, I want to come on with Rizal Islam and debate you, and he posted 4 or 5. I said, man, you're a joke. And that's the thing. It pisses me off when these people, anything happens, oh my God, we've never seen athletes just, drop dead. Actually, Hank Gathers, Flo Hyman, we can go on. So we've actually seen this. And then of course, Bronny James, congenital heart defect. And so it has to be frustrating when every time something happens, these people automatically just go, oh, it was the vaccine. It was that COVID thing. And I'm going, please shut the hell up.
Yeah. Things are what we call true, and unrelated, right? It is maybe true that he had a COVID vaccine. I have no idea. And quite frankly, it's not our business, right? And it is true that he had a cardiac event right? But it is unrelated, has absolutely nothing to do with the fact that he may have had a COVID vaccine. And that is often the case, right? We want to assign a temporal relationship to everything since COVID happened. We want to say that everything post-COVID has something to do with COVID or a COVID vaccine, and that's simply not true. The problem is we have very low health literacy in this country, and so things that we've had common knowledge of for as long as we've been keeping medical statistics, people all of a sudden are like, it's COVID. It's like, no, there are a lot of things that have always happened since the beginning of time, whether someone was knowledgeable about it or not. And so we cannot assign everything to COVID, just like you said. So this young man had a congenital heart defect. And for someone who doesn't know what a congenital heart defect is, it is something you are born with. It went undetected, and these things can happen. And that is why every child in this country who wants to participate in a sport needs a sport physical. And most of the pre-sports testing and examination is a whole bunch of questions trying to figure out if somebody is at risk for a acute cardiac event that might be brought on by physical exertion or physical activity. And as was the case here, sometimes these things go undiagnosed or they can get missed because the first sign of some of these issues is the big major event, right? There's not always an abnormal heart sound or an abnormal EKG, and we don't go around doing detailed cardiac exams on every single kid who gets a sports physical. So a lot of it is questionnaires and family histories, and there's still always going to be a case that slips through the crack. So we don't need to then say, oh, well, then somebody failed this family or anything like that. This is just our lived human experience and is playing out on TV. And, you know, everybody has access to every story around the nation now. So I think we're just a lot more aware of things that have always been happening in the background. It's just we didn't always have nationwide news. If it didn't happen in your area, you didn't know about it. And we didn't always have as much celebrity news as we have. So we don't know whose child had a cardiac event on the basketball court or on the sports field in the past because it was none of our business. And right now it's not any of our business. And certainly we shouldn't take a tragic event that a family is having to live through and then now assign a whole bunch of BS to it, right? So I'm so happy that you just called this person out and said what it is. Like, it's quackery. And there's a lot more colorful language that I could use about it, but I don't want to go there. I don't want to be unprofessional.
Well, actually, what I did was, not only did I call him out, I said, yo, punk ass will never be back on my show. I said never. I said that will never happen. And I said, go to hell because you're an idiot. All right, questions. I did. I don't give a damn. I'm gonna call it like it is. And I also said you're actually a podiatrist. So you can run around and talk about you're an infectious disease expert and you're training in the tropics and all this sort of stuff like that. I'm like, but you're a foot doctor. That's what you are. Yeah. Yep, that's exactly what I said. That's exactly what I said. And if him and so he had all the people jumping on like Vicky Dillard, and I'm like, Vicky Dillard, you're an expert in mortgage fraud. Shall we discuss that? See, again, if y'all want to go there, we can go there. Just saying. To my panel, any of y'all have questions for the doctor?
Actually, I do. I'm sorry I'm laughing, Roller. You're too funny. But anyway, Dr. Gaffney, thank you so much for this information. One of the points you made, I'd like you to elaborate on it. You talked about the amount of medical misinformation that's out there. And like Roland said, I mean, you got some fools who may have some kind of medical degree, but a foot doctor is not an expert in COVID. And then you got people who self-diagnose, they go on the internet and say blah, 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 and they come back and say, this is what I have. How do you account for this, and what can we do to combat it? Because I think it really does prevent some people from getting the kind of medical care that they really need.
Yeah, I think, just having these conversations, being a platform where people can tune in and see experts that they relate to and they connect with, as well as when people are speaking out of turn, speaking out of place, and spreading misinformation, to just call it out, right? And I think we should feel free to do that amongst our family, our friends, our colleagues, our church community, like wherever it is. If we know without a doubt that that is not the truth, that that's not the fact of the matter, I think we should feel comfortable calling it out. Too often, we don't want to have discord. We don't want to have this debate. We don't want to step on people's toes, or we just don't want to be bothered. But I think as a community, we have a responsibility to one another, where if something is just not the absolute truth, to just go ahead and myth bust. We have enough information at our fingertips, enough useful and valuable information at our fingertips, that we should be able to myth bust and call a thing and call it out right where we are. And we need to stop worrying about hurting people's feelings, because the people who are out here spreading misinformation, they have no qualms and no hesitation about putting people's literal life and limb on the line when they get out here and they tell these absolute lies, right? Many people died in the COVID-19 pandemic because of misinformation. And we saw all of the data about the hundreds of thousands of preventable deaths, and how those deaths occurred in areas where people were not forthcoming, and where people were just not truthful about vaccination, about the spread of the infection, where people prioritized finances, money, and economy over human life, right? We saw the excess death in those counties and in those states where those types of things took place. So just because we have less cases than we had a year ago, 2 years ago, or 3 years ago during the COVID-19 pandemic doesn't mean that COVID is done. COVID is still killing people every single day in this country and throughout the world. And we have a responsibility to prevent unnecessary loss of lives. There's always going to be someone who will die from this infection, no matter what we do. But I think we have to put our best foot forward. I think we have to show up with the best of intentions, and we have to do the things that we need to do to protect our communities and the communities that we serve. So, I said it from the beginning, and I'll continue to say it. Like, I'm not trying to risk my life. I'm not trying to be hospitalized and hope that the people in there decide to say, oh, look at this young Black woman, we should save her life. We should go all out for her, because that's not what happens in American healthcare systems, right? If I'm walking in a Black body, a brown body, a woman's body, and I'm not leaving my life up to the chance that somebody is going to see me, value me, and take great care of me, or do the best that they can by me. And I think that all of us need to consider that. The folks that this show is centering on is people who the country is not typically centered and focused on. And so it's a chance that I'm not taking for myself. I'm not taking it for my family. And I don't advise that anybody listening do that either.
All right, then. Okay, last question for you here. And that is, when you hear, again, because I'm telling you, I really want to cuss out some of these people. Because, again, that same punk-ass doctor and that punk-ass doctor and his punk-ass followers, and there's a group of people out here, you killed Black people. You were pushing that jab on them. And I'm going to be real clear right now. And, Doc, they're talking about another booster. And you got these people out here who are so adamantly against it, as if we don't have to take vaccines. I mean, I was in Liberia last year, took a whole bunch of damn shots. And I had to remind people, it was a bunch of people, especially Black people, dying left and right in 2020 and 2021.
Yep.
And again, these people act as if that wasn't happening. And I know individuals who refuse the vaccine and they ain't here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And their families wish they had taken it. So just share with us again what you know right now about these upcoming boosters, their efficacy, things along those lines.
So we anticipate a similar efficacy from the previous initial vaccines and initial booster doses as we saw for the previous strains of COVID-19, right? These booster doses are more tailored towards the newly circulating variants of the virus, but we can expect similar efficacy or similar effectiveness in preventing death and keeping people out of the hospital. So people tried to claim that COVID vaccines didn't work because people still got infected. But if a person with COVID breathes on you and they have a high viral load, and they're shedding a lot of virus, there's a high likelihood you can breathe in that virus and get infected. But the question that you have to ask yourself, if you were vaccinated, exposed to COVID, tested positive, is, but did you die? Because if you didn't die and you didn't go to the hospital, the vaccine did what it was supposed to do. Remember, pre-vaccination, when people were hospitalized in predominantly Black and Brown communities, people were dying sometimes at like 88% death rates, especially if people had respiratory failure and required ventilator use, versus in more suburban areas, more affluent areas, those death rates for people who were ventilated or went into respiratory failure was something like 15 to 20%. And we didn't always have access to some of those study drugs. And so the same may remain true, right? Yes, there are medications that you can get by mouth or medications that you can be infused in the inpatient or outpatient setting that will decrease the duration of your illness, decrease the severity of your illness, and may stave off things like death and respiratory failure. But you have to have access. And where access is a problem, then we're going to see higher mortality or higher death. We're going to see higher morbidity, so more hospitalizations and more long-term complications associated with COVID-19. So one of the other important points is to get treated early, get diagnosed early. Those first 5 days of a COVID-19 infection are critical. And some data has described sort of a point of no return. Like if someone's illness takes off and they cross a certain threshold, once we're beyond day 5, a lot of times treatment isn't going to change the outcome for people. So get vaccinated. If you're vaccinated, get boosted if a booster is appropriate for you right now. Talk with your primary healthcare providers about that. Know the symptoms. Know as soon as you have any symptoms or concern for COVID-19, you want to get tested so that you can get diagnosed and get treated early. That way we can stave off some of the complications of this infection. We have to just remain vigilant, especially now that the numbers are going up, and forget about what the crowd say or the naysayers say. If you feel you need to be in a mask, put on a mask. I put on a mask when I'm on an airplane. We're coming back in off cold and flu season. I'll be masking up in my office because I don't have time to be sick. I don't want to be sick. I'm not taking chances with this virus. And whoever doesn't like my mask, that's their problem.
Before Renita asks a question, I think probably one of the best comebacks I heard of this dude was on a plane, and as this anti-masker was giving him hell. You're sitting here. Why are you, just trash about wearing the mask? He said, the mask helps me mind my own damn business. I was like, boom. Renita, what's your question?
Dr. Jackie, thanks for being here. Just a quick question. This thing has gone on so long that now some people, even with their best efforts, are on their second and third COVID infection. Tell us, what information do you have about what COVID does to the body if you get infected for a second or third time? Is it kind of similar to what happened the first time, or just what do you know about reinfection?
So reinfection, symptom-wise, can be variable from person to person. I've seen some people who, with each subsequent infection, they become more symptomatic. I've seen the exact opposite. With each subsequent infection, people have become less symptomatic. I've seen people who have been infected, but they've not really had a symptomatic infection. They've been infected because they live in a large household with multiple family members. That's especially true for people in multi-generational households where they can't keep the young adults from coming and going. So it's variable. But the thing that remains true is the people who are at high risk, so people with immunocompromised states, right? People who have weak immune systems, whether it's naturally weak immune systems or medication induced. Think about people who have had things like kidney transplants, heart transplants, liver transplants, bone marrow transplants, right? They're on drugs that suppress their immune system. They tend to do really terrible with COVID. People with chronic lung diseases, COPD, emphysema, people who are on oxygen, people with chronic heart disease, people with diabetes, people with chronic kidney disease. Since the outset of this pandemic, these are the people who have consistently done poorly with COVID-19 infection, and that is going to remain true. And then you're always going to have those people who are outliers, young, healthy, fit, weight is normal, exercise every day, eat perfectly, do yoga, whatever things people claim was going to protect them from COVID. We still saw tons of people in that healthy state who got sick, got hospitalized, and even died from COVID-19 infection. And so we can't predict which low-risk people are going to end up in the hospital and are going to unfortunately die from this infection, but it's going to continue to happen, even if it's at a much lower rate than our over 65 population and the people who fit that list, or our cancer patients. And we could go on of the number of people who are high risk in the country and throughout the world. So really the bottom line is this: nobody is safe. You can't predict if you're going to cruise through COVID-19 or is it going to cause your untimely demise. So we all need to take it seriously. We all need to seriously consider vaccinations or boosters where applicable. And we have to consider that if it calls for it and mass mandates are put back into place, we need to respect that, not just for ourselves, but for those people around us who we don't know how they're going to do with a COVID-19 infection, but may be hospitalized, may die, may end up with long COVID or have some other serious adverse event from COVID-19.
All right. Dr. Gaffney, we certainly appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Thanks for having me.
All right, folks, got to go to break, our final break. We'll be right back on Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network. You two folks, hit that like button. We should be at 2,000 likes. What are y'all doing? Y'all taking too long. Hurry the hell up. I'll be back on the Black Star Network.
Hatred on the streets, a horrific scene, a white nationalist rally that descended into deadly violence.
White people are losing their damn minds.
As an angry pro-Trump mob storms the U.S. Capitol, we've seen shooting.
We're about to see the rise of what I call white minority resistance.
We have seen white folks in this country who simply cannot tolerate black folks voting.
I think what we're seeing is the inevitable result of violent denial.
This is part of American history. Every time that people of color have made progress, whether real or symbolic, there has been what Carol Anderson at Emory University calls white rage as a backlash.
This is the rise of the Proud Boys and the Boogaloo Boys. America, there's going to be more of this.
Here's all the Proud Boys, guys.
This country is getting increasingly racist in its behaviors and its attitudes because of the fear of white people.
The fear that they're taking our jobs, they're taking our resources, they're taking our women. This is white fear.
On the next Get Wealthy with me, Deborah Owens, America's Wealth Coach, I'm sure you've heard that saying that the only thing guaranteed is death and taxes. The truth is that the wealthy get wealthier by understanding tax strategy. And that's exactly the conversation that we're going to have on the next Get Wealthy where you're going to learn wealth hacks that help you turn your wages into wealth.
Taxes is one of the largest expenses you ever have. You really got to know how to manage that thing and get that under control so that you can build wealth.
That's right here on Get Wealthy, only on Black Star Network.
Hi, everybody. I'm Kim Coles.
Hey, I'm Donnie Simpson.
Yo, it's your man Deion Cole from Blackish, and you watch
Roland Martin, Unfiltered.
All right, folks, I'm here in Atlanta. Chris Tucker had his annual celebrity golf tournament today, and I get a chance to get out there. In my group, I played with my man Johnny Gill, so we had a great time as well. But in addition to it being the golf tournament, also was a celebration of the 52nd birthday of Chris Tucker. And here's some of the video that I shot at the awards program.
Hey, y'all got this wrong. I am 25.
That's doing it right there.
God told me I'm 25. Get your hand on my gate. You got his knuckles all in mine. Hey, here we go. Cut it off. All right, cut it off. Cut it off. Okay.
All right, Carol. You got DC Curry video? All right, y'all. Okay, y'all. So, first of all, it was great to see so many different people out there. Dominique Wilkins, Warwick Dunn, Kevin Willis, Steve Smith, my goodness, Brian Hunter, the bus, Jerome Bettis was out there, my man. Oh my goodness, y'all. It was just so many folks. Don Lewis from A Different World. Glenn Turman was playing as well. Comedian George Wallace came on out. And of course, the crazy man himself, comedian DC Curry. You know I had to sit here and joke with him. Sitting over here like he's the goddamn godfather.
Ain't but one of them.
Fucking,
ain't but one of them.
This Jamaica Corleone.
I'm ready to get it out. You know, it's getting close to my nap time.
Wait a minute. You supposed to cross the hand over here because they kiss the ring. How you hitting him, baby?
I ain't going to club in 5 months. I ain't going to club in 5 months, boy.
Oh, hell no.
But I'm going to be on the day, boy.
Okay.
I feel it, man.
Okay. Ain't swung club in 5 months, but gonna come out here in a golf academy shirt.
You know my team won last year.
Huh?
My group won last year.
Your group won?
It was a year before last.
Oh, But hold on. Your group won.
My group won.
So they put in some work.
No, I had some chippers and some putters. I can get the ball down.
No, I
get the ball down the line now.
Oh, gotcha. All right. I know. Well, you said I had some chippers and putters, meaning I had some other people chipping and putting.
Right.
Right. So what did you do?
I put it down there. I put it down there.
Oh, got it.
Chipping ring.
Oh, okay. All right.
Then they went to work. I don't remember their name.
You just got the trophy, huh?
Yeah, man. I got the trophy, man.
Okay. All right. Okay.
Last year, year before last. 66 ain't no joke.
I can't remember shit.
Oh, man. All right, let's tee it up, baby. All right.
Hit him good, bro.
Yes, sir. All right, y'all. I'll have some other stuff tomorrow. It was just too funny out there joking around with those guys. So we had a good time and raised some good money for charity as well. That's it, folks. I got to go. Let me thank Renita. Let me thank Amakongo and Julian as well. Thank you so very much for being on the panel, folks. Do not forget, support us in what we do. Download the Black Star Network app, Apple phone, Android phone, Apple TV, Android TV, Roku, Amazon Fire TV, Xbox One, Samsung Smart TV. You can also, of course, support us by joining our Bring the Funk fan club. Send your check and money order. P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. Cash App, $RM Unfiltered. PayPal, R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle, Roland at RolandSMartin.com. Roland at RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. And be sure to get a copy of my book, White Fear, How the Brownie of America is Making White Folks Lose Their Minds. Available at bookstores nationwide. That's it, folks. I'll see you all tomorrow. Holla! Folks, Black Star Network is here.
Hold no punches.
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America, Roland. Stay black. I love y'all.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?